Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tom Baker Show. It's good to be back with you, and wherever you are tuning us in from, we are thankful to have you and excited about what we've got in store for this evening. We have got Chili Bowl conversation and all kinds of good stuff to talk about here. And boy, just the Chili Bowl itself gives us a buffet of different things to discuss tonight. But this is going to be a fun show. I bring in once again my co-host and the editor of Steering Wheel Nation, Jacob Seelman. And Jacob, the Chili Bowl was an interesting race. It didn't go the way a lot of us thought it would. But in the end, Kevin Swindell and Swindell Speed Lab were celebrating in true Swindell style because their cars were fighting it out for the win.
They were, and what a beautiful fight it was, first off. Second off, I love that we get to devote a large portion of this show to some of the big picture conversations surrounding the 40th Chili Bowl Nationals powered by NOS Energy Drink, because anybody that knows me knows that it is absolutely 1,000% my favorite race on planet Earth, period, bar none, above everything else. And number three, if you missed the small bombardment or maybe large bombardment, depending on your point of view, we've been talking about the Chili Bowl over the past little bit here. Shameless plug, you can check it out on our Road to the Chili Bowl page on steeringwheelnation.com. Shameless plug, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge there.
Good job, Jacob.
So much fun. So much fun getting back into that swing of things again. But yes, everybody that went into the week betting on Kyle Larson or Christopher Bell was going to take the money and the driller, and we're hoping to make some money off that bet. Well, guess what? You lost in spectacular fashion, I might add, because not only did neither Kyle nor Christopher win, Christopher wasn't a factor in the finale. Kyle we'll get to more of in a minute. And some kid from the upper Midwest by the name of Emerson Axum, I say that the way I do because those of you who didn't know who Emerson Axum was before this week, well, what were you doing before now? And number two, just kind of tongue-in-cheek fashion, because Emerson has, if he wasn't on the map before now, Emerson Axum catapulted himself through everybody's computer screens and into household name status, or on his way at the very least to household name status real fast in 55 laps during the finale to the 40th Chili Bowl last Saturday evening. Just think about this, Tom. He led 52 of 55 laps in that race. He wanted to make a statement and take control from Kyle Larson early after Larson started on the pole. Emerson said, I feel like the only way I have a shot to win this race is if I take it to him right away. Emerson did that. The slider he put on Kyle to take the lead on lap 4 was a thing of beauty and something that I haven't seen 20-year vets be able to pull on Kyle Larson, because Kyle's usually just that good. But Emerson strutted a lot of stuff this week, in a week when everybody thought him going to Swindell Speed Lab from Keith Kunz Motorsports, which has been the kingmaker of the SageNet Center in Tulsa for nearly 30 years at this point. They've got their fingerprints on how many drillers, even the ones that weren't necessarily won by them as car owners, were won by drivers who went through the KKM system at one time or another, i.e. Kyle Larson. But no, everybody thought that was a mistake when Emerson left KKM to go to Swindell Speed Lab. And Emerson basically took this week, looked at the haters, and laughed hysterically in their faces as he walked away down the stretch and took the money, took the driller, and still at the end of this, Tom, had to go on the victory stage and ask Kevin Swindell, I do have a ride next year, right? Talk about a crazy question.
Well, I think some of that may have been tongue in cheek, but Emerson was just
Oh, no,
flat
no,
awesome.
Emerson was dead serious. He was dead serious. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, regardless, Emerson was flat awesome. He just, every once in a while, you just have a night when everything that you do, everything that you touch just turns to gold. And that was the way it worked out for Emerson, on Saturday night. And, let's put this into some context here because we had over 400 entries this year for the Chili Bowl. And, Emerson is well known for his exploits at the Tulsa Shootout. Not necessarily a driver that you predict as a favorite to win the Chili Bowl until now. But he showed that he can jump in a midget and take it to the best that there was. All week long, we were talking about, Kyle Larson. We were talking about Christopher Bell. We were talking about the same drivers that we talk about every year at the Chili Bowl. And, and even a few drivers that were sort of upstarts this year. Ty Gibbs got a lot of conversation earlier in the week with, for his driving and preliminary night and such. But, Emerson Axum is one of the young guns coming up through the dirt ranks that I hope will not make the right-hand turn and come across into North Carolina and try to make it to NASCAR because the dirt track ranks need Emerson Axum and need a lot of these young racers that are, making their name now. And for Emerson to make the move to Swindell Speed Lab and for Kevin Swindell to go from one car to four cars that's a huge step. And those cars just rocked all week long.
They did. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that the lead car going into the week, of course, was Logan Seavey at Swindell Speed Lab, who, of course, won both of his Chili Bowls in 2023 and 2024 with Kevin. Those were Kevin's first two wins as a car owner in the big show, as they say during Chili Bowl week. Logan, his knowledge, his willingness to be a true team player. This is something that Emerson talked about in the post-race press conference long after the celebration was done and dusted Saturday night, just because it took a while to get everybody wrangled so they could have the conference. Emerson was excited, and rightly so. But no, he circled Logan Seavey as really the big reason why he won this race. Logan's guidance, Logan's mentorship, and let's keep in mind, Logan is not too much older than Emerson is. He's right around my age, and I just turned 32. Logan's a couple years younger than I am, but still, Logan is the type of guy who you could easily look at and go, well, why aren't you more selfish on the racetrack? And there was one moment with 2 laps to go on the green-white checker in that feature where I thought for a split second we might see Logan Seavey be selfish. He did dive into turn 3, coming to the white flag, and try to just as cleanly as he could root Emerson off the bottom and give himself a chance. And Emerson played perfect defense to hold on to it at the end. But to listen to Logan afterwards stand there and say, I'm just as proud for Emerson to win this race for our team, not Kevin's team, our team. Logan takes a little bit of ownership in that as well, just because that's the type of person, the type of leader he is as a driver. To see him take so much pride in Emerson's success as he would have for his own success, I think tells you all you need to know about what that organization is in this building. And Emerson even said it afterwards, that this is the first team he's been on where he feels like it's a true team instead of people racing out of the same camp, but kind of being every man for themselves. Emerson said he never felt that all week, from when he won his preliminary night to when he won the finale on Saturday. And I mean, you think about it, 3 out of 6 nights, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, it was a Swindell Speed Lab card on top, on top of the podium. You had young Jet Barnes, who we'll talk about more in a couple minutes, who was third on the podium on his prelim night with a couple of guys who aren't, much more than young guns themselves in that building. Tuesday night's prelim was so much fun in that regard. But I mean, to me, Tom, I'm gonna say it. I know you and others aren't quite ready to say it, but I've been covering, blow by blow every Chili Bowl since 2018, and I've been to 4 of them in person myself. The 2018 to 21, when Kevin was just starting the Speed Lab project with Logan, by themselves. And I'm not afraid to say it at this point. Swindell Speed Lab is the new top dog in the building, and if you want a driller during Chili Bowl week now going forward, you're going to have to go through that team to get it. Not saying that Kyle Larson isn't capable in his own stuff. Not saying Christopher Bell isn't capable in his own stuff. It was a very weird week for Keith Kunz Motorsports and Matt Wood Racing, the two preeminent super teams in the building. But to me, this week was about Speed Lab looking in their 10th year, looking at everybody and saying, this is our house now. And I think Emerson's win and the way he won that race Saturday night really proved it.
Well, I mean, it's not that I'm not ready to say it. I just think, and I guess if you're going to sort of lay odds or, look at it in the sense of who's the dominant group, sure, Swindell Speed Lab right now is the group to beat. But the Chili Bowl, as we saw this week with the Keith Kunz group, the Chili Bowl can be fickle sometimes. And just when you think you know who the team to beat is, all of a sudden there's a week where you just can't hit the side of the barn. And, so much of it has to do with your prelim night. And if you think about the prelim night that all those guys had, they all either won or they finished up front. And that makes it way easier when you don't have, an issue and have to, start the D main or something. Right. So, I really think honestly that, that team right now, and I think you really hit on something, Jacob, when you talked about how Emerson referred to it as a team. I think those guys, and you may not, I don't know, you may not be old enough to even understand this reference, but I think those guys are starting to develop as a group into something similar to the, the Rat Pack, if you will, back in the 60s and 70s, we had Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin and all that, right?
Yes.
Like they're all, as Dean Martin would say to Jerry Lewis, hey, Pally, they're all pallies. They're all friends. They're all brothers.
Yeah.
And,
they are.
I think they all really just enjoy going racing together. And I think, Kevin sets the tone for that because, there's no, and I've known Kevin since he was about 12. There's no harder worker right now at what they do in grassroots motorsports than Kevin Swindell and Swindell Speed Lab. And, it's a great group that work on those cars and they've got some of the best drivers in the business. And so, from that standpoint, sure, when you go to the Chili Bowl, you got to reckon with all those guys. But the Chili Bowl is too fickle of a race, and it changes every year, it seems like. Sure, you have drivers that have won, several of them. See Kevin Swindell as a driver, right? And Sammy and, and the like. But, we saw Chris Bell come out of the box and win his prelim night. And, it's not that he ran poorly on Saturday, but he wasn't even a factor. So again, you just never know until you line them up and run the race. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go ahead and get to my stat of the week real quick before I jump to talk about Kyle Larson here. Um,
Okay.
Sealing stat of the week on this one has to do with the Chili Bowl and the fact that Emerson Axum became the 24th different driver in the 40-year history of the Chili Bowl Nationals, powered by NOS Energy Drink, to win the event. And as a note, just the third driver ever to win the Golden Driller from both the Chili Bowl and the preceding Tulsa Shootout for micro sprints, joining only Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell in that category. That's some exclusive company for somebody like Emerson Axum. And he was just a couple months shy of being able to actually break Kevin's record as a driver for the youngest driver to win the Chili Bowl Nationals. Kevin was also 21, but a couple months younger than Emerson when he won his first Chili Bowl back in the day, I guess we'll say. 2010 seems like an eternity ago now. But really, to add to that, Tom, this could easily be a absolutely career catapulting victory for somebody like Emerson. And he's right, but a lot of talk about, okay, what's Emerson's doing in 2026? And he's trying to hit at it after he won his hit race on Wednesday night going into the balance of the week, where he said, and I quote, in response to, Blake Anderson jabbed in about everybody talking about Jason Forsley Wednesday night, who, of course, is driving high limit for KCK Nielsen this year. Anderson claps back with, it's just the high limit crew race show, guys, showing the high limit drivers some love. Maybe we can get an outlaw official up there to give me some love. End quote. And my eyebrows shot up real high into what little hairline I do have. And I said, oh, are you trying to tell us something, Emerson? He did at the very end of the year when Corey Eliason took over the KCP racing car that Emerson had filled the seat of for a bit during the summer. Emerson did go back to the Flossmeyer Petrie number 27 car that he's driven predominantly over the past few years. I'll just say this. Scott Petrie, who has worked with Emerson going back to midget since Emerson was much younger, 14, 15, I think, at the time when Scott and Emerson first got together. Scott Petrie is not short on cash. If that team wants to go national racing, if Emerson wants to go national racing, Scott can help provide the resources to do it. That comes down really realistically to crew members. I have heard several sources that I've talked to in the dirt bubble say that team had been looking for potential crew members over the past couple months. Do I think it's a stretch to see Emerson show up in the 27 car at Volusia for Car Nationals in a couple weeks? Not a chance do I think that is out of the question. In fact, I think, especially after Chili Bowl, it would be more likely than not, I would say, at this point on the bingo card. But I digress on that for just a minute. Going back to Kyle Larson, Tom, I was more shocked, I think, that Larson, in the pressure of trying to get back to Emerson to battle for the win. And granted, it wasn't his fault that CJ Leary slowed up ahead of him and they got tangled and Larson ended up on his lid. But I think even before that, I saw a few chinks in the armor, if you will, that Larson was maybe having to push a little harder than he expected to have to stay with Emerson in that in the early stages of that 55 lapper. Were you surprised that it ended the way it did for Kyle, all things considered?
Yeah, given that I had just told folks that I thought he would lead all the laps from the pole, I was pretty surprised. But again, that's why you line them up and throw the green, because at the end of all this, that 55 laps are some of the most unpredictable laps in racing anywhere, honestly. Every year, you just never know what's going to happen at the Chili Bowl in the A-Main once they throw the green. So, yeah, I was very surprised that Kyle Larson was and even more surprised that he made the mistake that he did, because it's uncharacteristic of Kyle to do that sort of thing at the Chili Bowl. But just again, miscalculation, and it ended up putting him into the wall and flipping him over and, knocking him out of the race before it had hardly got started. So, this was really, the stars were lined up perfectly for Emerson Axum to pull this one off. And he didn't disappoint. He did a great job. It was a great A-main. I know that we're going to talk about Jet Barnes here in a moment, but first we're going to step aside. And when we come back, more Chili Bowl thoughts on the Tom Baker Show. Stay with us.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Welcome back to the show. We are talking Chili Bowl, Jacob and I, and what a Chili Bowl it was, and just talking about various performances and news and notes. And Jacob, just an absolutely incredible event that we saw, and to see Emerson grab that win was huge, but there are way more stories from this Chili Bowl than just Emerson's win.
Yeah, there are, and it was once Larson was out of the picture, it was a very, I would say, borderline bizarre top five, if we're being totally honest. Not that any year I wouldn't expect any of these names to be there, but for all of them to be there all at once was a bit shocking. Behind Emerson, you had longtime USAC sprint car ace Kevin Thomas Jr. End up coming all the way from qualifying out of the B main, started 18th,
he did a great
ran
job.
all the way to second. Got second coming to the white flag as Logan Seavey, who had been second to Emerson on the green white checker restart. We thought it was going to be between the two Swindell cars, and Logan's car ended up starting to sputter on fuel at the very end of that race, so he fell back on the final couple of restarts. KTJ ended up second, his career best in the Chili Bowl. And for Four Kings Racing, which hasn't really been a big player on the national scene until this year, that was a big deal for that organization too. Hank Davis getting a podium finish, also his career best in Chili Bowl competition. For the Matt Seymour team out of Massachusetts, Tom, I loved that.
Was
the Seymour
big.
family, the Seymour family, this in Northeastern pavement racing between the Nima midgets and just a lot of the short tracking up in New England, that portion of the country. That family is well regarded up in those parts, and they have worked so hard with Hank, who's an Oklahoma boy, to get their program to where it could contend like this on a Saturday night. That was a huge podium finish for them. Like we talked about, Logan fading back, running low on fuel. He still ended up fourth in that race, which arguably should have been second and had a shot at Emerson on the last lap there. And then for Alex Bowman Racing, who at Bowman had, I think I'm okay to say that. I hope I'm okay to say this. We'll just call a spade a spade. Alex had the week from hell a year ago in Tulsa and came back. Didn't have to stress about any of that this year. Finished Top five, finished fifth with young Briggs Danner, who has just been a breath of fresh air out of the Pennsylvania dirt scene to do what he's
Yep.
done in USAC competition. Briggs coming home with a great top five finish. Both of Alex's cars qualified directly into the show out of their prelim nights this year. CJ Leary also in the field. I hated to see CJ, not end up better than 13th in what was a little bit oddball in the middle of the pack's 55 lapper when we got down to it. But just to have both cars in and not have to stress over B mains, I know was Alex's main reason to dance a jig in the pit area last week. Just a great showing there. Cannon McIntosh in seventh, the only KKM car of 10 to make the championship A main, the 55 lapper. You had Gavin Boschel in the Kyle Busch Motorsports car putting KBM into the Chili Bowl for the first time. Just like you said, a lot of remarkable stories. And then the one driver not in the top 10 that arguably should have been, but had a date with the cushion that ended with a little bit too much damage to be able to, keep going and be competitive, was the other Swindell Speed Lab car of Jet Barnes, the young 14-year-old out of California, who just blew everybody's eyes wide open all week, ran third on his preliminary night, ends up Rookie of the Year for the Chili Bowl. Joins a great list of drivers you can catch on SteeringWheelNation.com, by the way. Great list of drivers that have won Rookie of the Year honors at the Chili Bowl. Unbelievable. I was not expecting that kind of a performance out of that young man this week. And even Kevin, said there was a part of him that didn't necessarily expect it, but thought just maybe if the stars aligned perfectly, and they really did. And to go outside the A main for a second, Tom, I just want to give a shout out to two drivers that were not in the A main field, but absolutely made themselves a storyline on Chili Bowl Saturday. Driver out of Adrian, Michigan by the name of Darren Knight, a sprint car kid out of the upper Midwest, and Ohio driver who's come out of micros, spent some time at Millbridge Speedway, now is starting to work into the bigger cars, Mac Leopard. Both of them running through a record, by the way, 9 alphabet soup features. NIDA going from the O all the way up to the O main, all the way up to the G main, and Mac Leopard going from the N main all the way up to the F main, which was right after a track rework. And I think that's the only reason that Mac wasn't able to even keep going, because that car out of the Chase McDermott stable had so much speed. I was blown away the job that Mac was doing, and really even Darren Knight, who had Jason McDougall in his ear in the Mission Foods, the Dan Binks stable over the course of Saturday. Jason, no stranger to an alphabet soup run in Chili Bowl competition. But for those that didn't get a chance to watch the early mains on Saturday, go back and watch the replay, and you'll understand on Flow Racing what I mean when I say that building gets rocking when you have a couple drivers that just keep marching. I have never, in all the years I've covered Chili Bowl, I have never heard the building that loud. I have never seen the building that full that early in the day as what it was when NIDA and Leopard were marching forward, Tom. It was a thing of beauty. Thrilled for both those young men and excited to see what they may be able to do as the season goes on. Here's my pivot point, starting with Third Car Nationals at Volusia Speedway Park coming up the end of January into the first couple weeks of February. Third Car Week's getting going down in Florida. I love it. And of course, most of the names and more that we've talked about during Chili Bowl conversation already. Gonna head some.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that here in just a minute. We're going to take a break first. But before we do that, I just want to go back to your mention of the young 14-year-old Jet Barnes. And the thought that I had was that, so Emerson Axum just missed eclipsing Kevin Swindell's record as being the youngest driver to ever win a Chili Bowl. Well, Jet Barnes has about 6 years to get that record, and he's already
Yeah.
competitive at the Chili
Yeah.
Bowl in a Kevin
Yeah.
car. So just
Yep.
saying. With
Yep.
that, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Dirt Car Nationals talk here on the Tom Baker Show. Stay with us. For over 50 years, FHS Superior Synthetic Oil has powered high-performance engines with unbeatable protection and speed. Whether it's drag racing, go-karts, sprint cars, stock cars, or your daily driver, FHS stands for high speed and delivers every time. Their advanced synthetic oils boost your engine's responsiveness, acceleration, and efficiency, giving you the winning edge on every lap. Visit FHSoil.com today to find the right products for your engine. FHSoil.com.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners, elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the show. It is now time for our last lap segment here on the Tom Baker Show. And Jacob, it is Dirt Car Nationals time. So much going on here. It is hard to believe that we're almost a month into the new year, just about to the end of January. We've got the Rolex coming up, and we've got Dirt Car Nationals in Florida for the dirt machines. Of course, the ASCS series leads it off at Volusia, and then you got the Outlaws coming in. It is that time of year already. Speed Week's getting set to get cranked up in the Sunshine State.
Yes, it is. And I love that this is basically pretty much an all dirt show because there is so much bleed over from the Chili Bowl field into the Dirt Car Nationals field at Volusia between both the ASCS 360 sprint cars and the World of Outlaws 410 sprint cars in back-to-back weeks. Here's just some of the notables expected that raced at Chili Bowl. Dason Pursley, who's we mentioned earlier, finished 6th in the Chili Bowl A-Main, driving for Casey Kane Racing, stepping into Brad Sweet's car. Spencer Baston, who made the Saturday A-Main field, driving for Stenhouse Junior Marshall Racing. You got Brenham Crouch, who's driving a second CJB car this year. He'll be in the CJB car that's on the High Limit Tour in 2026. You got Justin Peck, who was driving a Rossi Petty Durax entry at Chili Bowl, going to be back with Rudine Racing and the Ford Performance Engine program this year. You've got Chris Wyndham, Big Daddy, coming back for year 2 on the Outlaws Tour with Jason Sides. Garrett Williamson was in Chili Bowl. He'll be, of course, starting his second season with the Outlaws as the reigning Kevin Gobrecht Rookie of the Year winner. Chase Randall going to be on High Limit Tour. I would more than likely expect to see him at Dirt Car Nationals at Volusia. Sam Haferteet Jr., of course, going to defend his ASCS championship starting at Volusia on the 360 side. Annie Sams III, the Florida man, going to run High Limit full-time again, but you can't pass up an opportunity to race against your home state fans in Florida. If you're Danny, fully expect to see him take it against the Outlaws in his home state. Of course, Blake Kahn, another name synonymous with the Chili Bowl. He's run the ASCS Tour full-time the last few years, and we expect him to be back in contention for an ASCS 360 championship starting at Volusia. Could we add more talent? Of course we could potentially add more talent. There's the potential likelihood because the World of Outlaws week at Dirt Car Nationals is in between the Clash and the Daytona 500 week. So you could add Christopher Bell, potentially, if Don Kreitz and the 69K team decide to head back down to Florida to shake it down for a few days. I would fully expect Paul Silva and Kyle Larson to be back in action. Ryan Timms, the defending Knoxville Nationals winner, the Liebig 10 car, potentially, maybe, could come to Florida. Don't know on that. I wouldn't be surprised to see Corey Day end up in a car for a couple of Outlaws races. I'm not sure if that would be the Jason Myers car that he ran last year or whether it would be something else. And of course, we mentioned that Emerson Axsom may have tipped his hand as far as potentially racing for the World of Outlaws in 2026. Like I said, if he's going to do that, then obviously that starts at Volusia as well. It's going to be interesting if you're Emerson Axsom and this was your plan even before you won the Chili Bowl. Do you leverage the momentum of the Chili Bowl win to make this announcement even bigger and go, hey guys, oh, by the way, this is what we're doing? Like I said, there's no confirmation of that yet, but I call it a gut hunch, Tom. I just have this weird feeling if we don't get the announcement beforehand, I just have this gut feeling we are going to see Emerson in the field when callers pull into Volusia in a couple weeks.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it's always a great show, and with a star-studded field like that, I mean, it's can't miss TV. This is, I always say that Speed Weeks is pretty much racing spring, if you will, because rarely is it can be winter-like sometimes in Florida this time of year. It did snow in parts of Florida here not too long ago, but generally this is racing spring, and there's a lot of racing in Florida that comes up, in the next few weeks here, the month of February. Just about every division of short track grassroots racing is represented somewhere for some period of time down in Florida. And it's just an absolutely delicious place to be if you're a motorsports fan. And of course, Dirt Car Nationals gets it all started here, kind of the spring training for motorsports, but some of it counts for points.
It does. The ASCS leg actually becomes points races for the ASCS 360 championship this season. You've got Justin Peck, who won all three ASCS features at Volusia 1 year ago. You had Kyle Larson, when we got to the Outlaws Big Gator Week, won 2 of the 4 races and took home the Big Gator Points Championship for the first time in his career. But I want to pose this about a driver who we haven't even talked about because he didn't run Chili Bowl, though he is a former Chili Bowl Nationals Rookie of the Year. How important, Tom, is it for Donnie Schatz to get going quickly with Barry Jackson and that CJB number 15 team at Volusia? That track has treated him very, 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 very well in the past. He's won darn near 30 races at that racetrack over the years. I'm going to go on record right now and say, if Donnie Schatz does not stand on a podium at some point during Dirt Car Nationals, that team will not be in any contention for any sort of a strong points finish, let alone a championship at the end of the year. Donnie needs to get going, because if he doesn't, I'm just going to say it right now, if he doesn't go at Volusia and show something, he's going to be digging out of a hole all year, and he's proven the last couple years that he cannot dig out from a hole, period.
Wow. Did someone come over there and blow out your pilot light? I mean, what are you, it's only the first few races of the year. I'm not going there. I can't sign on to that one. Now, first of all, I think Donnie Schatz will be just fine out of the gate. He may not win a race, but I think he's going to be just fine. I'm not too worried about it. And the last I knew, the World of Outlaws runs much closer to 90 races a year. And the Dirt Car Nationals is but just a few. So I'm not worried about Donnie Schatz at all. It may take him a little time to get, reacquainted with things. And our producer, Chris, reminding us brand new dirt at Volusia this year. So
yes,
I don't know if I
want to
say that makes
variable.
I don't want to. I don't know that I want to call it a neutral track, but because it's still dirt. But I think it could be a different different look for the first night or two. So I'm not going there for old Donnie Schatz. I think Donnie's going to be just fine. It's a long season, and I'm not too worried about building a hole.
Fair enough. All right. Yes or no in maybe 15 seconds. Are you worried at all after we got the news that Buddy Kofoid was going to sit out the Chili Bowl due to illness? Are you worried about Buddy between now and Dirt Car Nationals?
I'm worried about Buddy in general because I don't know. Do we know exactly what the issue is with Buddy? There hasn't really been any details. So, yes, I'm actually very concerned, but it's not so much about when he gets back to racing. I just want to understand, and pray for him to get well soon, because the fact that they're not giving a lot of detail worries me.
All right. Yes or no? Can David Gravel three-peat as a series champion this year?
Sure. I believe he can. I mean, it's not like anything's really changed there. I mean, David didn't forget how to drive in the last couple months. I don't think. I don't see why he couldn't be. He's one of these drivers. I think he's the closest thing to a Steve Kinzer type driver where, you have kind of that legendary run. He is the closest thing right now to doing that we have. And I don't see why he couldn't repeat as champion again. Do you?
I think the road to the championship goes through David Gravel and Big Game Motorsports right now. They've proven they can be good everywhere. Agree. And until somebody goes out and beats them, which Buddy and Roth Motorsports did a few times at the end of last year, sure. I like a Gravel versus Kofoid battle for the championship, maybe with a side of Carson Macedo too. And then the variable, of course, is Donnie with CJB. I'll let you, Tom, end on this point because you mentioned Florida in February. Jimmy Johnson, talk about a legend. We'll shift to the NASCAR bit for the last 30 seconds here. Gets the open exemption provisional. We know he's in the Daytona 500. He'll be the 41st locked-in car. I'm not crazy about it. I know you're not crazy about it, but at the very least, hey, we get to see Jimmy run one more 500. I guess I could be okay with that. I just don't like the rule.
I hate the rule. I hate the exemption. I hate giving somebody a free pass. Jimmy Johnson doesn't need it. He's going to be fast enough to make the race without it. So I think that's absolutely ridiculous, but we don't have time for me to go on a long rant, and that's probably okay. And so with that, we are going to wrap this one up and say thank you to all of our sponsors, and thanks to POWERTube TV. Watch POWERTubeTV.com all week long. And for more great content, SteeringWheelNation.com is our website, at The Wheel Nation on Facebook, X, and Instagram. Until next time, I'm Tom Baker. Have a great week, everybody. So long.